T-minus 30 seconds. T-minus 20 seconds. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0.
Shout out to USARK and all USARK members. If you don't know what USARK is, don't be ashamed. Just go ahead and click the third link in the description below. See what USARK is all about, okay? You never know when legislations are going to hit your backyard, so that's why it's very important to consider becoming a USARK member today. These numbers really do matter, and they look at it for consideration when it comes to battling legislation. So first and foremost, thank you, Phil Goss. Thank you to anybody out there who partners up and volunteers with USARK organization. Thank you for anyone out there who's a USARK member. And if you can't become a USARK member today, please talk about it on your platforms. Let your neighbors know, let all your pet stores know what USARK is here for, and it's here to fight for our animal rights. Thank you to every USARK member and USARK supporter out there. Choo!
All right, good afternoon, everybody. Hope you're all having a great Sunday. You're now tapped into the coolest reptile network in the world, the Trap Talk Reptile Network podcast. This is Krista with the Girls Who Love Reptiles Sunday Show, episode 42 already. Really excited for our guest. Amy from Happy Basins is going to be on with us today. So really excited to hear about her love and passion that you can, if you just, look her up on Instagram, all the passion she has for these species. So I'm excited to talk to her and get to know her. Arboreal is something I'm kind of looking into. You guys know I love the ball pythons and some of the geckos, but the Arboreals have always kind of interested me here and there. So really excited to learn more about them. So yeah, I hope you guys are all having a great weekend. I've had a little bit of a stressful day, actually. My main computer I do all my work on, I spilled some liquid on it, so I ended up getting a new computer in the last couple hours. So seems like it's working, the audio is working, camera looks pretty good. So yeah, it'll take me a little bit of time. Most of my data for my PhD is backed up. There are some files ideally I would like to get transferred, so it's kind of crossing my fingers that I can transfer from the other one, but it's not wanting to turn on. So a little bit of a stressful day, but then I pulled first ball python clutch of the season yesterday, so some ultramopides. Most of you guys know I'm moving across the country here in a few months, so those guys should pip a few days before I move. So got one clutch in. We'll see if any others go after I move, but trying not to push the breeding so much this year, just with everything going on with school and moving. So, but yeah, I hope you guys are all having a great weekend. I'll do some sponsors and then we'll go ahead and pull up our guests and get started. So as you guys heard in the beginning with MJ, really important to join USARK. The description is in below if you're curious on how to join. Super easy process, very affordable to join too. So it's really highly recommended. Can't really keep these animals without the work that USARK does. So again, it's very important that we join them and join the ranks, and the more people, the better. And of course, we have ReptiCo, the official sponsor of the Girls Who Love Reptiles podcast. Channing, she's the daughter of Billy and Dawn Rice from Rice Reptiles. She's starting her own reptile breeding company, ReptiCo, named Official ReptiCo on Instagram. So go ahead and give them a follow. Follow them on Work Market. They're really into breeding the high-end, high-quality hog noses as well as crested geckos. So go ahead and give them a follow. Also on YouTube under Rice Reptiles. They're pushing out videos weekly. So go ahead and follow them, subscribe to them, and help build their following as well. And then as far as the COCO Dude, so yeah, go to cocodude.com for all of your COCO needs. My personal favorite, like you guys know, is the COCO to go. Comes already kind of pre-mixed and wetted. You can just plug and play into your enclosures, and that's been the best for me, especially it's been the lowest dust, and for my allergies, it's the only one I can really have. So highly recommend the COCO Dude. And then we have Blake from Blake's Exotic feeders. You guys know how important feeding our animals are. We want the highest quality feeders and nutrition and protein that we can give them. So quail often comes into play here. So go follow Blake Exotic Feeders. Let him know that the trap sent you, and he'll get you set up right. And then, of course, we'll end it here with Clutch. So go ahead, sign up for Clutch if you're looking for a system to organize all your ball python breedings. It's put in a very modern, very easy to follow interface with a lot of new additions and features coming up over the next several months. So highly recommend joining Clutch today and join the Clutch family and getting everything just organized for all your ball python breeding needs. And so with that, we'll bring on Amy. We'll go ahead and get started. All right. Hey, Amy, how's it going?
Greetings. Super fabulous. Thank you.
Yeah, you guys heard my computer issues. Amy also got a new computer too. So it's been a day trying to re-sign into everything and get everything loaded up, but it seems to be working. Everything's clear on our end. So yeah, super excited to have you. Has your weekend been pretty good otherwise, or?
Yes, it's been a fabulous weekend. I have this little litter of babies I've been caregiving for, which could not bring more joy.
Yes, that's what MJ told me, that he's super excited. It's like, yes, that was on my list. We'll definitely get into that, of how amazing that is in that process. And shout out to you for doing that. It's a huge accomplishment, really inspiring. So with a species like this. So yeah, super exciting. Where are you located at?
I'm in Central Arkansas, Hot Springs, Arkansas.
Central Ark? Okay, because I'm in Missouri right now. So you're not too far from me then.
No, not at all.
Yeah. I'm right in the smack dab of the states, Columbia. So yeah, not too terribly far. So tell us just a little bit of a background of, how this is one of my favorite questions. It kind of leads into things, just to hear people's journeys, like how you got into it, what made you get into the species you work with, and we'll kind of start out there.
I collected snakes out of the desert where I grew up in Tucson when I was just a kid. And then I had my daughter, and she had a little snake for a few years. And that was about 27 years ago, or well, more than that now. And since then I hadn't had a snake. And then I just had like a vision that I wanted to have snakes again. And I chose a snake, which I chose the false water cobra. I thought it looked cool, and I saw a lot of videos online how they eat things off a plate, and they were handleable. That was my whole thing. I wanted something handleable. So after everything I'd watched online, I chose that animal. And my husband said, well, if we're going to do this, we're going to have to find something that I can look at and feel love for. So that's how we came across this particular species. And we started off trying to find some, and it was extremely difficult. And we reached out everywhere we could, and we finally found one. And then through the rest of the year, we found our first one in June of 2020. And then through that year, we started getting messages back from other folks that, well, I have one now. Are you still interested? So we started just getting all of the ones we could. And before we knew it, we had 6. And now, before I know it, including my 6 babies, we have 18.
So it went
from 5 years later.
So it went from the false water, and then your husband really wanted something more like visually, I guess. See, I don't know too much about the false. Are they more like hiding all the time type of species then?
No, that was what I liked about them. They're not. They, according to all the videos I saw on the internet, they're extremely interactive and handleable, and you can like give them a choice of different foods, so they were interesting to interact with. And that's why I chose them. But my husband, he said he doesn't feel this way anymore now that he knows more about snakes, and he can appreciate the look of the king cobra, because they do have a similar look of the king cobra, like to some aspect. To me, they looked tough and cool and all of that. And he said at that time that was a face only a mother could love, and only the face that I feel in love with.
Okay. And that's when you went.
I never even knew I never even heard of this animal until he showed it to me on his phone.
Okay, so that's where it was just a random picture you found, or was it on Morph Market, or like where was that first picture?
I got my first animal from Morph Market. My first emerald boa came from Morph Market. But whatever picture my husband found, he was just making a lot of Google searches for beautiful snakes and such things. So it was probably just a Google search that he showed me.
Okay, yeah, that popped up, and yeah, the green, and then the starkness of the white, the very
Oh, this the whole face. Well, you guys can see on this beautiful carving that Michelle Maddox did for me. She looks so real, but the whole shape of that face is just, I like the nostrils come out at the end relative for me, where the python has it like a little more on the top and it turned up. I like this more canine looking. I used to have German Shepherds, so it gives me a feeling of that face.
Yep. I see that. It's so real. Backstage, I thought it was real. I was like, "What's that one?" I was like watching the whole time. It would faintly move. I thought it was real. That was real. So I was like trying to figure out who that was. Oh my gosh, that's amazing.
Yes, I have 2 of these walking sticks that Michelle Maddox carved. This is just a natural vine that goes around the stick that I found at a garage sale. And she did a little epoxy clay on the head, but other than that, this is just the natural vine.
Wow.
Gorgeous.
Very cool. Okay, so you got the first animal off Morph. Now, was this a captive bred animal, or was this an imported animal?
The Amazon basins, if you end up with an imported Amazon basin, it's illegal and you probably wouldn't know it.
Okay.
Yes, the northern emerald tree boas can still be imported and exported from Suriname and Guyana.
Okay.
So we see a lot of those here. But as far as the basins, then you're not likely going to find a wild caught. And like I said, it would be a big secret. So
yeah. So the first animal that you got was a basin then? Or
yes. The basin. I do have some northern emerald tree boas that were wild caught upstairs in a different room, their own little jungle, not like this, because one of them was in rehabilitation with me, and then the person who asked me to rehabilitate her ended up giving her to me.
Okay.
Which I kind of had to bribe her and with extra money and stuff, because I was supposed to give her back, but I didn't want to. So anyway, I left an open offer that I knew eventually was going to be needed. So she is living with us now. It's very difficult to foster an animal or rehabilitate and not get attached.
Yeah. Oh,
and I have another northern that we picked up at the Tinley Expo in March that my husband and I just looked at her, and oh my God, she's majestical. She's old and her head is bigger than even my huge basin that I have in here. She's just really neat looking. So I am gaining a small collection of northerns, but all downstairs here in my jungle room are all basins.
Mostly the basins. Okay. Yeah. Cause that's what, obviously happy basins, basins, but northerns too. And that's kind of something I wanted to get into as well, because it's where I'm kind of at my research is the differences between the two. Like, how do you see, the care differences? Is there personality differences between the two? Kind of go into that a little bit, and helping people decide if they are interested in one of these species, what would be a better fit for them.
Yeah, I have a great little speech on that.
Okay.
The general thought is that the northern emerald tree boas are extremely aggressive and snappy and not handleable, where basins are considered to be more gentle and handleable. And I can only speak from my own experience. I have held in my hands 32 wild northern emerald tree boas out of my 11 trips to the Amazon rainforest. Mm-hmm. And of those 32 animals, 100% of them have been handleable. Mm-hmm. I took one bite the first time I started handling out there. Because the first one was so great. When I got the second one, I didn't take the time because the first one spoiled me. Mm. And I hear people say that about their kids. But yeah, the second one was more aggressive and I got a bite. And that's the only bite I ever got until my last trip, when I was trying to get a photo and I had a young juvenile that I shouldn't have been trying to handle like I handled the adults. And I didn't get a bite, but his tooth nicked my hand and made it bleed. So those are the only 2 times out of 32 animals. And I hold them just like I do in my face. I put them on other people because their body language is so easy to read. So that's my experience with northerns. Now, I can also speak to the process that some of these animals go through. You know, everybody knows that the exportation process on these animals is, you know, stressful. So by the time one of these wild caught animals comes to the States, if they were not treated like our good exporters treat the animals, and professional trappers, some of them are caught by hunters and sold to exporters who take any animal, no matter how it looks, and ship it off. Where we have good exporters who collect healthy animals by professionals, and you know, it's a real business. So by the time those animals who didn't go through the process correctly get here, they're in shock and they're not handleable. And it is taking me a little more time to tame these 2 northerns that I have, to the point where I can, you know, handle them like I do with mine here, who are completely content to just sit in humans. This is Zaltis. He's real.
Okay, I think somebody asked if that was Cash in the chat.
Oh, it is not Cash. Zaltis and Azzy are the only 2 that didn't eat like 5 days ago, so I can only get these guys out right now. But you see how this is. This is how these wild northerns are in my hands, and I have tons of video footage, as many of you have seen, to prove it. So do you want a northern or a basin? I recommend that if you're getting started, I mean, I say get a captive bred northern if you can. And you can raise them to be exactly like this. The price difference is insane. So you have to be truly invested, you know, with a lot of resources to get one of these animals anyway, because of the habitat they need. But as far as financially, I think if you're going to start off, a captive bred northern is going to have no different personality than this right here. And
how old is he?
Zaltis is 7.5.
Okay. And
I have 8 ambassadors here in my jungle room who all behave just like this. So they're really nice.
Yeah, super calm, slow moving. I see what you mean on easy. I've not really I've just seen, you know, pictures of them or whatever. I've not been around breeders with them, but you can just tell, like, easy moving, slow. You can be able to read them fairly easily. I can see that. Yeah. Very cool.
And it's good he's got a lot of things to be interested in. I'm not moving my hands a lot in front of his face. And I'm just letting him look around because they're extremely curious. Not like a colubrid where they will usually try to slither away really fast. These guys are very calculative about their movements and really gauge their environment. And he wants to get up on the vines on the ceiling, don't you?
Yeah, I can see. So I mean, just for me looking, it looks like some animals you can tell there's a thought process in the way they're kind of turning. Would you attribute that to the species? Do you think there's differences in that way of thinking between Amazons the Basins and the Northerns, or are they about similar the way they think? Okay,
they are very similar. And actually, now that Larry and I have the wild Northerns, we were actually just talking about it the other night about how much more actively they gauge their surroundings. Like you said, how you can see thought. And I said, I just feel like she's talking to me through her eyes, because she looks at me for a long time and then she looks away and looks back. She's so calculative. They really seem like they have a lot more eye movement, like they're checking things out. More so than these guys, but they're just kind of used to it all. So
yeah, that's also true too. And
I see differences.
Oh yeah, go. I was gonna ask what are your I guess the differences in care between the two as well, like space, lighting, heat, humidity, and how you keep them. Any differences or pretty much same?
No, there are no differences.
Okay.
I've never read any differences in the care between them. If there are, somebody can say, but I've done a lot of research and I've never seen where you would do one thing for one and not for the other. Now, there are a lot of opinions. I'm not talking about opinions, but the basic care, yes.
Okay. Okay. And how do you keep yours?
I keep all of my stuff. I try to emulate I keep them both the same. I try to emulate as much as possible what I see in their natural environment. So I don't use perches. I create vine systems because when we're out there in the wild, when we're on the river and we're finding these guys, we find them in vine systems. And if we pass by a large group of thick, beautiful trees that have no vine system, we just look because we're going by. We don't stop and scour like we do when we see a vine system. Wow. So I know for a fact that they like vine systems. Okay. And so instead of just perches, I have entire systems that run through the enclosures. And the entire vine system is removable and can go directly in the rain chamber, which, to another point, in the jungle, it rains, pours down rain for months at a time. And of course, there are seasons where it doesn't, but it still rains. And these guys are extremely active. People don't go looking for them in certain seasons. But when it's rainy season, they are out and about. That's when they breed and eat and move around. So that tells me that they enjoy the rain. The rain activates them. So I like to, all of their enclosures down here have rain systems. The northerns don't because they're upstairs. So little differences would be, just because that room's not developed. But I plan to develop it and get more. I'm in love with them. But as far as their environment, I keep it the same, as natural as possible. I keep a nice negative airflow through their enclosures that they get for 20 minutes in the morning and 20 minutes in the evening is like something we experience in the jungle. They have a good gradient for their temperature, so they can feel like they're sitting up high close to the sun, or they can get down in the shade, which they utilize those areas usually depending on their shedding cycle as well as their feeding cycle. So a full belly, they'll all be at the top, and an empty belly, like he was, more little bit lower than the middle.
Okay, so they will regulate. And how, what's your under that heat panel, that basking temp that you try to get?
I have a piece of paper, but just by memory, I'm going to say somewhere in the high 80s. I'm going to say like 87. And then for the gravid animals, then that basking spot goes up all the way to about 91.
Okay. I know that I only know this from MJ. He has it on and off. Do you just keep it on during the day and off at night, or do you have times that you kind of will regulate the heat panel?
Well, we use the Vivarium electronics device to power our Pro heat panels, which tells them, when, and then there's a thermostat on the Vivarium electronics. So when that thermostat strategically placed reaches a certain temperature, then the Vivarium turns the heat panel off, and vice versa.
Okay.
And then our fans are on auto, and they run, like I said, 20 minutes twice a day, pulling air through, because none of their enclosures are all sealed with no air. So that negative airflow just pulls air through all the enclosure for 20 whole minutes. And that really helps because of how humid we have to keep it, which to their misting system. That brings me to their misting system, which goes off, I think, 6 times a day. Larry sets all of the electronics in this house is Larry's doing. My job is to have fun and play with the animals. But he's got those mister systems set up the northerns upstairs get a lot more mist. Their misters go off 6 times a day. Down here, anywhere from like 2 to 16 seconds. Different time periods throughout the day. Less, in the evening and more in the midday. And then the northerns upstairs, I don't even know what we set it at, but I just look in there and I'll ask Larry, can you have it go on longer? So I don't even know how long it's on now, but I like them to not really have a fully dry space. They have plenty of space to move around, plenty of airflow. I've gotten rid of scale rot on both of them, as well as some other nasty things. So having all that mist on them is helping them drink a lot. And I have the drops coming out a little heavier because these animals don't respond to soaking for hydration. They do not respond to that. It stresses them out. Or I theorize that it would stress them out. I've never actually tried soaking them. It doesn't make sense in my mind. But I do know how stimulated they are by rain. And I've had a lot of healing things happen with rain. And I believe that that big drops of mist coming on them a lot is helping, and their vine systems helping them to acclimate a lot better than a perch and a little tiny bit of mist now and then.
This is kind of the hardest thing maybe about these guys. Just you want it humid enough, but with humidity can also come, like you're saying, scale rot or like other kind of issues in a not wild setting. So it sounds like the negative air pressure is what's kind of helping keep that system intact, correct? Yeah,
absolutely.
Have to look into that. I mean, I do research at work, and so yeah, some buildings have negative air pressure to like keep certain pathogens out and things like that as well. So it sounds like it's kind of like a similar type of system. Maybe like, is there an airlock kind of system that happens, or how's it? I don't know. Maybe
I don't know what an airlock is, so I can't say.
Oh, okay.
It's we use a little computer fans, and it's on the outside of the enclosure, and then he's got a plastic vent that's on it, a really nice vent that they could never possibly get through. And then that fan pulls air out of the enclosure for 20 whole minutes. So of course, that's going to bring air in from the outside because our doors are not sealed tight.
Right. Okay. I see. Very cool setup. I don't think do a lot of people do that, or is that something that you guys kind of have specialized for your setup?
Most of what we have is from visiting Steve Volk's house and seeing his setup. We took all of our basic information from Steve Volk, and then of course I've gotten creative on top of that with my experiences out there. So between the two, all of our basic, and he uses airflow. He uses all the stuff we use. I just, did the vine systems are different, but as far as products, mostly everything. Our rain chamber came from him.
Okay. So
he's our technology guy who got us going on all of this.
Okay. Yeah, it's when you have so many numbers, then making an efficient system, it just helps. So it's hard to do it by hand or by yourself and get everything the same. So
yes,
to optimize it. Thanks, so pretty hanging out. And
comments.
Maybe the comments. If you guys have questions, you can put them in the comments for sure. I can bring them up. Let me see if there's any.
Arboreal, thank you for coming.
Oh yeah, you can see the comments too. Yeah. It's basically, did we talk about space, wood size enclosures? Do you have them in? Are they different for the ages that they are at, or no, they're about the same? Okay.
The babies are, of course, we don't have that kind of space, but yes, the babies are in some really nice little Tamura design. They're 16 by 20 little enclosures, and it's a 12 enclosure condo. I haven't got all the vines finished for it yet, and I'm still fixing it, but I have a nice video to put together of how amazing that little condo is.
Okay.
So we have that. And then the enclosures, you can't even see them. The typical enclosures in here are, I think they're a little over 5 feet tall, 5.5. And then the bottoms are 2 foot by 2 foot. So it's a tall enclosure.
Mm-hmm.
Now, if I were to do it again, I would do the width as a 3 foot. Of course, it takes up more space, but my animals do get out a lot. And but we're in the process of building some more quarantine enclosures for more wild-caught northerns. So in those cases, we're starting that new room upstairs. I am going to go ahead and do a 3 foot by 5 foot.
Okay. 'Cause I
Mm-hmm.
heard that from MJ too, that he is noticing that they're moving a lot more, like kind of side to side in the enclosure.
They'll just use all the space they have.
Okay, they're one of those that you can't give them too much space.
No, because mine come out, and if the folks who know my room in here, the whole ceiling is filled with vines, and these animals, I have videos of night vision, sped up time-lapse videos throughout the whole night, and it's like zoom, 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 zoom. They're all over this whole entire everything.
Interesting, huh?
Mm-hmm.
Very cool. Oh, Morelia has a pretty good question. Do emeralds like natural wood perches or only vines?
What was the question?
Do the emeralds like natural wood perches or only vines?
I'm sure they would love natural wood perches. Unfortunately, all of the natural wood in my jungle room is shellacked. So they don't have the full wood experience, but the soaker hose vines does have some texture on it, which is one of the reasons I really love them. But as far as their preference, I can tell you between just a perch or vines, when they're active, they're in the vines. Where do they sleep? We have also found them sleeping in the vine, system on small limbs of trees. So they use trees and vines in the wild, but if you want to find them, you have to find vines. Usually.
Okay.
More likely. Mm-hmm.
And with the vines, this is a weird question or not. I feel like I've heard this on other shows that when they talk about perches, they're talking about like the diameter and how that has an effect. With the vines, okay. So what diameter do they prefer a certain diameter? I don't know if it's a weird question. It just is, curiosity, but
they do prefer to coil up more tightly. So if folks could think about how ball pythons like to coil up to keep the heat in, and they just feel good and secure all coiled up. These guys also like to do that. And even my Isis, she's over 6.5 feet long. She's humongous. And she will perch on her 1/4 inch vine. She also perches, she's got, I think right now she's on probably maybe about a 5/8. She's on a natural piece of wood, but she will also perch right on that 1/4 inch. So they do like to have very small vines in the wild. Once in a great while, you'll find them on something thicker while they're in the process of moving. But usually they're either hunting or sleeping, and they're on thin vines.
Okay.
I use 1/4 inch and 1/2 inch.
Okay.
And that's basically all I use. I have some 5/8 and some 3/8. But it just turned out to be silly to do all the different sizes because a 1/2 inch and a 1/4 inch works perfect.
Yeah.
And another thing is I have tons of pictures. They'll have their tail wrapped around a 1/4 inch away from their whole body that's on the 1/2 inch. So they do like to have that tail wrapped on something very small.
Interesting. Wonder if that just makes, I don't know why they would. It just makes them feel more secure, that thinner, maybe more fragile part of their body, maybe. I don't know.
Yes, and also I think just their instinct is, when something comes to take them away, a bird, a monkey, or anything, they don't slither away as fast as they can. They hold on as tight as they can to the perch they're on. So I think instinctively they're going to choose something smaller so that they can wrap more tightly and hold on better.
Right. That makes sense too.
And they hook their heads around stuff like a real hook as fast as they can. So if they were around something large, they wouldn't be able to hook that head. And
Right.
that's definitely an instinct too. So I think just instinctually for protection.
Yeah, makes sense. It's just interesting when, I have these species, you just notice those little things and just try to take it back to how they are in the wild and try to interpret what it means. I find would be very, just very interesting. Trying to, I don't know, crack a code, I guess, per se, but just kind of figure out what they're thinking. I feel like there's so much more to learn about these guys, especially. I'm just getting into in the last couple years, and so I don't know a whole lot, but it seems like there's a lot to learn about them. See if there are questions before I kind of go on. Ghost very active in the chats. What kind of
Hi, Gabriel.
Oh, this is Gabriel. Okay, cool. Hey, Gabriel, thanks for tapping in.
I use soaker hose vines, which anybody who watches any of my stuff is familiar with because it's like my doctrine. Rain and soaker hose vines. Because it's such an easy way to create a vine system. It's the bestest thing of all. It can be kept sterile very easily. I've never ever found mildew, no water buildup. It's fabulous. And I've dealt with that with other materials, as well as it's super easy to mold. I paint my vines with an Ecos pet-friendly paint, and it lasts through all these rain chambers and all the rain and everything in our room. And like I said, my vine systems go from the top to the bottom.
I mean, it's something you have to think about with these types of species that need so much rain, moisture, and humidity. Yeah, the stuff that you put in them, may not, even though they're meant for reptiles or whatever, may not be meant for that type of humidity or rain. What do you have as like the substrate to help keep that in? Or is there
we don't use substrate, but my jungle room is filled with plants. That's another great thing about the soaker hose vines. You can integrate arboreal water bowls just by using another piece of soaker hose. And the soaker hose is threaded through with an 8-gauge wire for the 10-inch and a 10-gauge wire for the 1/4 inch. So they're nice and sturdy. And when I create those water bowl holders, whatever size I want them to be, and I put the bowl in there. But back to the substrate question, is that I have hanging plants hanging directly off the soaker hose vines, as well as on the bottom. But everything can just easily be removed and cleaned. I tried substrate when we got our very first one, and I tried all kinds of different stuff. Everything molded real fast. I don't recommend substrate. I think if someone is a master bioactive creator, that they would be able to do something grand with a lot of airflow. But for me, I use in my enclosures that I do not have. These enclosures in here all have shower pans, and they're plumbed into our plumbing and all extravagant stuff. But in my other enclosures, that I keep a puppy pad at the bottom with a plant pan. Sorry, Z, under the plant, and then the plant on top of it.
Okay, that's something I've seen more recently too with the chondros, and I think MJ's doing it for his emeralds too, is the puppy pads.
And my husband, if my husband was here, he would correct me. We don't use puppy pads, we use adult bed pads, because the puppy pads, if you like rub your hand on it, you can see that it frays a bit. And if the animal were to ever accidentally snap at that puppy pad or get a tooth caught and start swallowing it with their meal or anything, which is a story I actually heard that was devastating.
I've heard of that too, where they'll ingest it.
Be removed. And so that story is what that person led us to the adult bed pads. They are a little bit more expensive. For us, it's easy because all of our emeralds are potty trained, and we don't ever have to change those until it's time to clean the whole enclosure.
Okay.
So, which I can go months without cleaning because it's clean.
Yeah, which probably goes into like the feeding part. So what's your feeding regimen for these guys? Size of meals, how often does that change? Types of the year if you're trying to breed them? how's that? How have you done that? Or
I'll answer both of those questions. I'm going to answer the breeding question first. A lot of information is out there about feeding them on a certain schedule to get them to breed good, and all different kinds of things about feeding and lighting and temperature and humidity. And we tried all of that stuff for 2 years with animals that were even mating, doing good. We tried the not feeding them for 90 days, which almost killed me, but I did it for 90 days. I was supposed to go longer, but I was done. I couldn't do it. And then nothing happened. And then we decided, we just have these ambassadors. I have families from all over the country come over here and sit in my hammocks with my animals, and we love having ambassadors. So we don't need to breed. But of course, who wouldn't want babies? And then one day I was just holding two males in my hands, just like I'm holding Zaltis right now, but I had one in each hand and my elbows resting on this table, just like this on a live video. And the two males started mating, and we're like, oh my gosh, Jormungandr is a female. So we put them together, and literally 3 weeks later, she was in ovulation. Wow. And then we got our last babies. So we hadn't done anything at that point. I feed my males some, like Zaltis here, he gets mediums and he should only get smalls. I feed them every 3 to 5 weeks. Females start getting a medium at the age of 3, about every 3 to 5 weeks. And males continue eating a small the rest of their life in some cases. They like to keep the males smaller so that they're more likely to breed. Mm. But I have decided that we are just going to do it. If Zaltis is a larger male and he likes a medium, he can have it. We don't mind.
Yeah. They're bigger and can take it then. And then, every 3 to 5 weeks then. And when with the babies, is this your first kind of club?
This is my first full healthy litter. I did have another litter that we had only one survivor, and that was an extreme story that actually was record breaking, and some people don't even believe. So we do have one of those babies, and she is about going on 8 months now. And then we have our fresh new little babies that are about 6 weeks old.
Wow.
And everybody's doing fabulous.
That's great. And what are their feeding regimen that you have for them right now, those guys?
The babies ate their first meal at about maybe 3 weeks old. Well, one of them ate at days old. She came down and gobbled up 2 meals in just one back to back. And I was wondering if those meals were going to be too big for any of them, but she took 2 of them, when she was maybe 4 or 5 days old. And then the other 4 ate at about 3 weeks old. And those guys are taking about a pinky size, smaller than they should. But I have some pinkies that are going to be a little bit bigger here shortly, and they'll get to have a bigger meal. But their last 2 meals, they each had pinkies. Okay. And I have dwarf hamsters, little dwarf hamsters that I raised due to their high heat index, something I also learned from Steve Volk. And Steve Volk will try to feed all his babies a frozen defrosted, and if they don't take it, after some time, he'll do the baby dwarf hamster to guarantee they'll eat it because they are hot little commodities. Mm-hmm. But in my case, I just have such a fun time spoiling them. I just want to give them the hamsters until I don't have to anymore.
I've heard the hamster thing. I've heard of the hamster. Yeah, but they like those and do pretty well on those if they're having trouble. So interesting.
And I have so many hamsters now.
They're so cute. You probably want to feed them.
My king snakes once in a while.
I'd be afraid that I wouldn't want to feed them off. I just would want to keep them. I like hamsters. I think they're so cute.
Well, you don't know how many I have. That's all.
What do you have?
I don't know. I have 9 hamster houses with a breeding male, and some of those have either 1 or 2 females in with them. And then I have another couple that's not even, they're my OGs, our very first hamsters we ever got to feed to Isis when she was pregnant. So it's been over 2 years now we've had those little things. And they just get to live in this big extravagant house in my living room. So they don't count. But in the hamster farm, they have their own room in the garage with a split unit, sliding glass door. They're in there. They have way too many little accessories, wheels and houses and wearables and tubes. It's really fun.
Yeah, to see him active. It was a Syrian a long time ago before he got out. But yeah, they're really inquisitive little creatures and very, very active. So I think they're pretty easy to breed too, correct? I'm assuming?
What?
The hamsters.
They're easy, you said? They're very easy.
Yeah, that's what I thought. I didn't know if the dwarfs were any differently, but I know some of the larger.
Sorry, I was distracted because my friend Tara from Snake Treasures just showed up and I wanted to say hello.
Oh, yeah, we've had quite a few people join last here a little bit. Oh, there's a question too. I guess we'll get to that one before yes, here. Jorge, how important is the negative airflow? Wouldn't natural airflow in and out of the enclosure be enough for well-ventilated rooms?
I would say no. I mean, I just really believe in the airflow, especially if you're able to provide the level of moisture in there. And I'm not just talking about humidity, like misting and fogging. Most of those mister systems, you can turn them so that it has a little bit bigger of a drop, and they love those drops. And then maybe place them in a more strategic place where it falls on the animal. In the case where they were hydrated to where I think they should be hydrated, which is extreme, then I think the airflow is extremely important. If you're getting good sheds and your humidity's at a certain place and you're not using the airflow, then sure, whatever's working for you. But in my opinion, I like to give them as much of their natural environment as I can possibly get to them.
Yeah. And that takes, changing the airflow and all of that to be able to dial it in as good as you can get. So yeah, it's hard when people live in different climates too, different areas. That has like a big play on it, and the natural humidity of where you live. So that of course plays I'm sure a role. I don't know if there's anything else where we kind of keep going. Really ask what you feed them. We already kind of discussed that too. So okay, cool. Oh, Arboreals, thanks for tapping in. Trapper there. All right, cool. We keep going. So with the babies, like how did you incubate those? At what temperature and how long do those take to? Oh no, I keep forgetting clutches. No, they're live. So never mind. Forget that. How long did you see her ovulate and then deliver, or you have any sort of that timeline? Or I keep thinking egg, but no, these are ball python breeder, but yeah.
If I remember correctly, her ovulation was set at November 3rd. I think I keep saying November 23rd, but I think it was November 3rd.
Okay.
And then she actually had the babies on April 12th, early in the morning.
Okay. So yeah, crossing it within a long time. So yeah, 4 or 5 months. Okay.
Yeah. And they don't eat the whole time. So
wow.
It is a long time. It was 154 days. I need to look all that up because now I keep getting confused between her and Isis's dates.
Oh, yeah. Yep. Yeah. So, and then I'm assuming you feed as soon as she delivered. Was there anything you did differently, like feed her immediately, or?
Both of them ate the same night after they had the babies.
Okay.
And I fed both of them a nice hamster. And I'm not sure if I said that, but we do feed these snakes do get frozen defrosted rats that we buy and get shipped here from Colorado.
Okay.
So these guys do eat rats. The reason they don't get more hamsters like the king snakes do is because I need the hamsters gone before they're big enough really for these guys to care about them.
Okay.
And I have to feed those baby hamsters to the king snakes because unless people want to come and get them as pets, because once they get big enough, then the males will start killing the little males, and they're real vicious. So when they get a certain age, I have to get them out of there. So I can't just keep starting new hamster houses every time. Just because they take food out of my hand or they let me pet them, I have to remember they're, I can give the feeders all the love, and that love will transfer to the snakes. So.
Right. Yeah, it's interesting that the male, I mean, it sounds like they're kind of a little bit, ASFs can be a little touchy too, as far as breeding them and the colonies and all of that part. So
yeah, the colonies, that's the hardest part about it.
Yeah. And what was the ratio again that you had them at?
What?
The hamster colonies?
I have 9 enclosures out in the hamster farm.
Okay.
And but I say 9, but I have a couple that aren't like the actual real enclosures and just other aquariums that I put them in. Actually, at this point, I'm not really sure. And then I have some mothers by themselves, so I put the males in other things. But a lot. Oh, the ratios. I have 1 male for each 1 or 2 females. I've figured out that you can keep multiple females together if they were born together.
Okay.
But if you try to take a female out of another enclosure and put it into another enclosure with a female and a male, then everybody's mean to them. They're very picky.
Interesting. So 1.1 or 1.2 maybe. Interesting. Yeah. Most other rodents are a lot more. You do 1.2, 1.3. Rats, they do the 1.4. ASFs, you can do a lot of those 1 point whatever, sometimes 5, 7. So interesting.
But you could leave a full baby family together. If the mother has babies and you just say leave 6 of them in there together, they will stay together for it'll be a long time before the males fight. And they'll start breeding. But and you can keep them in bigger colonies if you just keep families together like that.
Okay. That makes sense.
Pick out the males.
Yeah, just take out the males and feed off the males. Yeah. Okay. Makes interesting.
Someone asked another question about daytime, nighttime temperatures, and I was gonna I have a piece of paper. I wish I had it handy. I usually do.
Yeah, it looks like some of them were asking night drop temps.
I don't have the paper I wish I had with the exact temperatures, but I can tell you that it's a 12-degree change. Yep. So let's just say, I'm going to just try to remember that if we have, say our basking spot is 88 degrees.
Yeah.
I think I might have said 84 or 86 earlier, but I'm going to say it might be 88. At its highest point during the day, then at nighttime, it's going to be 88 during the day. It'll be 76 at night.
Okay.
So that's what I think that's probably pretty close to what it is. And then like if you go by Steve Volk's chart, I don't know where it is, then he's got stuff set up for breeding. So he's got like his lights are 11 hours, 13 hours these months, and 12 hours these months, and temperature at this and these months and that months. And we just quit doing that. So our stuff just stays the same. You're asking a lot of questions about that. I'll tell you guys something else that I recently have experimented with and found the same effect a second time.
Sure, yeah.
Which is I have grow lights inside of these enclosures for my plants. Not that the animals need anything special, but for the plants. And when they're fluval aquarium lights, so they don't ever get too hot, but they put off a good UV for the plants.
Right.
And the plants positively loved them when I first put them in there. I had it set to the default tropical setting. And I have perfect sheds on these animals every single time, except that time I got 3 bad sheds. Or not bad, but not like the beautiful, you could see the eyes and every little piece, one full piece shed. So I knew right away it was those lights because that was the only thing I had changed. So I changed the setting and put the white. I Googled it, which seemed very intuitive, of course, after I read it, that the lighting through the interior of the jungle would be mostly blue and red rays. So I put it on 60% blue and red and all the way down to 10% on the 3 whites available on the lighting. And everything's been fine for all these years now. Well, recently I had a plant guru come over, and now I have a machine that mixes 6.5 pH for all my plants, and I have to water it different than I ever did. And it's cool, but they're working on making it more easy. But what was I saying before the pH that put my brain in a different place?
Oh, the lighting with the whites and the
yes.
Yeah.
So the lighting is, since I did all this plant stuff with this guy, I thought, well, I'll increase my lighting because he said they need more lighting, and I said I can't. And then I thought, well, I'll just put it up to 30%. And I just did that about 5 weeks ago, and I got my first 3 sheds in the last like 8 days, and they were all not perfect. So even 30% is too high. So I put everything down to 15%. I know 10 works. So lighting has a big
Interesting.
Nothing to do with humidity. The humidity didn't change.
Yeah, that's wild. That's totally goes against what I mean, not so much on that, but the snakes in general, humidity, and that's what determines the shed, but even just the light, something that doesn't put off, I mean, it shouldn't put off that much heat, but have we checked?
There's no heat. I look at my app. I have every enclosure has a little sensor push in it.
Right.
So I can always look at my phone and it gives me a month graph, and all the graphs, nothing changed.
Okay. Because I've heard it where it's like, oh yeah, it shouldn't be heat, but it ends up being like a degree, but you're saying no, it's the same. So
yeah. So it must be just the UVB light or UVA, whatever it's putting off.
Percentage output. When you've traveled, has that been documented on what the percentage is in the wild? No, it's not been.
No, we've never taken a light meter out there.
Okay. Are you planning to go travel again at some point?
I have been to the Amazon rainforest 11 times since June of 2021. So that's less than 4 years, 11 trips across 5 countries.
Wow.
So the rest, and I've already gone this year. So the rest of 2025, I am not traveling. And I let all of my, people know where I go, so they know not to expect me. Of course, if a group came along and said they want to go, I would definitely go, but I'm not going to personally make any plans. And then from there, just whenever people want to, I'll take them.
Okay.
I would love to go stay for a whole entire year, do like a 90-day visa and then come back a bit and then go again and stay out there and really like find 5 animals and just keep track of them with these little cameras that I have. But it's too hard to leave for so long because this place has grown so much, and my sweet husband does so good with everything when I'm gone. But leaving him to do this is just too much for a long time. Yeah,
it can be a lot. And I went herping just a few weeks ago, just here in Missouri. Nothing crazy, but it was still gave you a little bit of just fascination for seeing these animals in the wild that made me want to travel. I've traveled abroad a bit, but wanting to go again and see some of these species in the wild would be really, really, but it's hard when you have the animals at home. You can't,
Yes. And, like I can't just do like a 10-day trip because you spend a day flying in, like say Suriname is my most popular trip that I can take people on because I have a great setup and a great crew out there. But still, it takes one whole day just to get to Paramaribo. And then once you're in Paramaribo, it is like, for example, when Bob and Dave went, we spent 27 hours driving in the middle of the jungle from Paramaribo to the little village where we went. And then it takes a whole entire day to get from that village out to the spot where we go. So that's 3 days of travel on each end.
Yeah.
And then you have to add a couple extra days on each, at least on the end, because if anything goes wrong and you don't get to Paramaribo for your flight, you have to redo all of that. And that's the Suriname Airway. They don't give you any credits to transfer. You just pay for another flight. Then your Miami flight's messed up. And anyway, you have to have those 2 extra cushion days. But those are great days because those are the 2 days when I get to visit my beloved friends, Igor and Bart, in Paramaribo. So
very cool.
Yes, and they've always been welcoming to any of my guests that I take.
Awesome. Sounds like it's a lot of fun. I've watched some of the videos on it. Yeah, it was super, super cool. I think the one it was like at 9 above. I'll have to rewatch. It was a little bit ago. But really, really fascinating. Oh, Morelia, UV or LED? I think it was you said just LED, right? But it's one that you can.
They're called fluval aquarium lights. And honestly, I used to be able to answer all the questions about them, but it's been so many years since I really paid attention to exactly what they're doing. But I'll tell you, when I had them on that jungle setting that they came with when I first got them, the roots of my plants were like growing into the vines and sticking to the sides of the enclosures. Whatever it is, the plants positively love them.
I'm looking at it now. I used to have them for my aquariums. Yeah, I think it's just an LED. I'm double checking. I don't think I know you can control like the intensity, obviously, but I think it's different than your traditional like UVB light that we're talking about for Reptile. I'll have to look. The light, light is its own beast as far as percentages and all that. But I'm just looking on my laptop. They're just LED. I had some for my aquarium, but they're LED, but they have adjustable like wavelengths. That's probably what is.
Yeah, I can probably show you. I do have some drawbacks about fluval, but some things drive me crazy. So if you can see like the different settings, and I can click that and I can change, you can just kind of see that it has
that looks like just the wavelength that can be changed.
Yeah, and if somebody could like Google what exactly is it, LED, I don't think it's LED. I really don't know. I don't even really know about LED, so I can't. If Larry was here, he would be in the background telling me what it is.
I'm not a light specialist, but it's just very fascinating that just that little difference can make that much.
I couldn't believe it. I thought 30% was going to be okay, but it wasn't.
Wow, it's wild. Huh. Very interesting. Cool. I'm trying to see if there's any other. We're at like the. Really, technology isn't Amy's thing. She did fine today with the new computer. We got it going. So, hey, it's not.
Yeah, but everybody who knows anything about me knows I didn't do all that.
So we're a little at the hour mark. So what I do is I have just a couple very short commercials I'll play, and then we'll come back and kind of finish it up with that. Probably talk about your travels a little bit, just because I'm kind of curious on that end, and we'll finish up. And if you guys are here and have questions, put them in and I'll get to them. But yeah, let me do a couple of these commercials and we'll be right back.
One of the biggest growths we have in the reptile industry today are the rare species of reptiles that aren't worked with. That's right. That's why I went ahead and partnered up again with Brian Susan over at SUNDOWN Reptiles. Brian works with species such as kahua geckos, gargoyle geckos, all species of tree monitors. He works with Abronia and many other cool species geckos that you can check out all on his website. Head over to sundownreptiles.com, see what he has available. Brian's one of the best doing it in the reptile industry today. He's been on the show multiple times, so make sure you check out all of Brian Susan's episodes on Trap Talk Reptile Network. But more importantly, for the highest quality of captive bred reptiles, make sure you head over to sundownreptiles.com and make sure you give him a follow on Instagram. Thank you again, Brian Susan over at SUNDOWN Reptiles. One of the things I love about being a part of the reptile industry is all the learning, okay? Learning can be fun, and I can prove that to you. Thank you so much to today's sponsor, Gary Scavino over at gs.reptiles. I highly recommend you head over to his YouTube channel, follow all this man's content when it comes to learning about rare species of snakes you could be keeping in the hobby, and also just finding out how easy a lot of these rare species of snakes are to keep in general. So Thank you so much, Gary Scavino of GS Reptiles. Again, head over to his YouTube channel. Also, head over to his Instagram to be on top of all of his current work and be ready for a big year over at GS Reptiles. Thank you so much, Gary, for your ongoing support. I really appreciate it. Cheers.
All right, we are back. Cool. Alrighty. Love the comments.
I got someone else here. This is Asmoa. This is our very first baby that we had. And you guys can see Zoltus is just sleeping right here in front of me.
Oh, okay. He's all chilled out. Yeah, look at that. Just gorgeous. Absolutely gorgeous. Yeah, I love the stark white contrast, and then the way it's like the darker green, the lighter green, like that kind of contrast in the coloration is very, very pretty. Yeah, people are commenting on the traveling. So when was your first trip? You said 2021, right? It was the first trip. So you hadn't been before that then.
No, when we travel, I like to get an Airbnb or Verbo and have my own bedroom and bathroom. I'm not a camping girl. I had been camping. I'm 52 years old, so I was 48 when I started. And I hadn't been camping since my early 20s when I had a little child and I did Girl Scouts and all of that with her. And it's just never been my thing to go camping. And then after I started learning about these animals, there was so much information online. I felt like the information online, of course, all of the basic information about habitat and all of that we followed, but I felt like there was something missing about the animal. The way that everybody said not to handle it and all of this stuff. And I would put pictures of myself holding the animals and I would delete them. I did that a few times in the first year because I was embarrassed about all of the mean things that people said about me holding them and stuff. So it's not commonly thought in the community that it's okay to handle these guys, at least in the communities that I follow on Facebook.
Facebook, yeah.
So, I wanted to have my own experience. I'm a scholar. I love to learn. I have a lot of impressive degrees in mathematics and stuff. And I'm just a person who likes to learn hard stuff and really get my hands dirty with stuff.
Yeah.
So I wanted my own data on these animals, not just from the Facebook groups. So I went on research. I went to go study these guys, and I made I looked on to see where were the hottest spots to find these guys. And I got on an app. I can't remember what it's even called now, iNature or something. And the spot where the most heavily dotted spot, whatever you could think of, the density of finding them, was in this particular area in central, a little tiny bit south of central Peru. And so that's where I wanted to go. So I went about with that. And that was for the Batisi, not which a lot of people say Batesi, Batisi, Batesi. I like Batisi. I like how it sounds, so I'm sticking with it. And not the northerns. Of course, the density of finding emeralds, if you consider northerns, is of course above in Suriname is very high in Guyana. So I went on my very first trip to that spot in Peru with a research group, and it was I got a lot of emails from the fellow who ran the place telling me that he doesn't want me to get my heart broken because I wrote this big long thing. Oh, I'm so excited. I want to come and see the environment of these animals and learn about them and blah, 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 blah. Please accept me into your group. And, that was my whole thing. And then, of course, my academic credentials and everything. So he did accept me, but he wanted me to know over and over again that they had not found any of these emeralds out there in many, many years, and that they just weren't out there. Probably about 4 emails that he sent me, making sure I understood that. I said, that's fine. I just want to come and study their environment, see where they live. At that time, I didn't even think about interacting with these guys in the wild. I just wanted to study their habitat. So that was enough for me. Well, when I got there on my third night, I'd never been herping in my life. If you count being a kid and catching bull snakes and rat snakes in the desert with my friends, then that was herping. But I never like went intentionally looking for snakes. It was my very first time was on that trip. And on my very third night, everybody in the group was looking at a tarantula with our friends for our friend's study that she was doing. And I was just like a little bit away from the group looking up when they're all looking down and just like putting all my energy, like, let there be an emerald. Oh, wow, there's an emerald. I was trying to like envision that I already found the emerald, like manifestation. And I'll tell you, it was the craziest thing. There was an emerald. I didn't even know if I was actually seeing what I was seeing. And so I went and told the guys and they said, oh, it's probably a vine snake. And I said, well, it's really way too fat for a vine snake. And they came and lo and behold, there it was, a batisi.
Wow.
So that was incredible. I stayed on that trip for 1 month and I did really enjoy it. I had a great experience. Here, you can go home, sweetheart. But I wanted to be the boss of my own trip because after I found that animal, I wanted to just go set my hammock up and sleep right where I found that animal and hope that I would get to see them again. And I kept telling the guy, you know, they have a pattern behavior. So if he came back here, even though the disruption happened, he will come back here. And so I really wanted to do that, but they wouldn't let me. So I decided to plan a different kind of trip. And I met a fella who was the maintenance guy. He cleaned the bathrooms and swept up the kitchen. Reynaldo. I'm sure he's probably not watching me, but he knows I love him. And he was a young man in his early 20s. And every night at 6 p.m. at 1800, Amy, 1800, we would play a game of chess. And he was so proud to play chess with this Professor de Mathematica that was a big chess player. So he was so proud. And we did so much talking through the iTranslator app on my phone. We would just take turns typing stuff.
Right.
And so when I got home, I reached out to Reynaldo all through translation. I don't speak Spanish. He doesn't speak English. And we planned a trip to go to the Amazon River, just the two of us, no plan, just to go out to small villages, find fishermen to take us to find what we need. And so we did that twice. It was absolutely incredible for a month one time and 2 weeks the second time. And we just lived out in the jungle. We had nothing except just showing up at docks and asking fishermen if they've ever seen these trees that grows a certain fruit that the rats like to eat. And then the snakes eat the rats. So we had fishermen all showing each other pictures about the fruit and till people would be like, yes, I know where there's a cluster of those trees. And we would go look. And we spent all that time at the three frontiers of Peru, Brazil, and Colombia. And I got to visit all kinds of different ports. So we were just out there doing that. It was just incredible. Villages where the only way to get there was to walk for 8 hours through the jungle. So we did that. And then I got contact with my friend Igor. And he's Igor and Bart are two of the top best exporters out of Suriname. And Igor said, I can set you up with my team. And if you want to go out, you can go out. And so I did. And I just went to Suriname with these 3 hunter trapper guys and went on their whole thing, saw, you know, how things work and all the different animals and everything. And then after that, I went back to Suriname over and over again. In between, I've been back to the 3 frontiers once, and then to northeastern Brazil for a specific animal, the striped batisi, which is what you see right here. And it just kept progressing to where it's been 11 times, you know, and then people want to go.
Yeah.
So then on top of my own trips that I have planned, I'm jumping every time someone says they want to go because I want to see it all through their fresh eyes, you know. So the whole thing has just turned out to be amazing. And my friends in Suriname built a boat and named it Amy.
Oh,
Great honors of my life. So that's how embedded I am in those travels now.
that's
And
really
it was really hard for me to tell my friends that I'm sorry, I won't, like, I was just there in February I left at the beginning of March. And I told them that I, at that time, face to face, that I was not going to be back in 2025. And that was hard to do because they wait, I wait to go. They wait for me to come. So
yeah,
start
life, those connections that will last a lifetime for sure. Has there been anything over all those course trips you've noticed changing over time, like as far as finding more animals or anything you've kind of noticed over time as you've gone there? Anything like that? Just curious.
All I can tell you is listen to your exporter friend when he tells you not to spend the most money you've ever spent on a trip going to your dream place in November, because that was stupid. So I had planned to go back to Northeast Brazil this May, but I have, like I said, decided not to travel this year. And I hated to tell Fabio I was canceling that trip. But with the babies and all the stuff, like I said, Larry has he has a dental practice with a huge staff. And so leaving him to do this means he's doing 2 full-time jobs. So I put off that trip, but I will definitely be going back. I don't remember your original question.
Just if you notice anything that's kind of changed over the years that you've been, like anything that you've just like more animals or maybe less animals that are in different places.
The time of year. That's what I was getting at with all this.
Okay.
Yes, definitely the rainy season. You don't want to be there like September to the end of September to the beginning of January. You don't want to be there. Although I've never been to Suriname, and I've been at all different times of year. I've never been and not found emeralds in the wild. That's never happened. But like say in April, you can see pictures of me holding 5 of them all at once that we found. And then people will see me with lots and lots of snakes. Do you have just a minute for me to briefly tell that?
Sure. Yeah, of course.
Okay, I don't want to go on for too long.
No, you're good.
You often see me with many emeralds at once. For example, my last trip that I just did in February, which was a really good season for February, usually can be good, but it's not the best. But this particular trip, I ended up with 7 emeralds to release back into the wild. And how I acquire all of these animals is, first of all, I want to say thank you to my fabulous exporter friends for not hating me for this part that I do that I love so much, because I'm actually taking their animals, if you look at it in the end, and they're still so kind to me, even though they give me, funny but not funny jousts about it. Is that when I get to the village, to the interior village, that's, a long ride to get. Either you could go boat or drive, they're both very long time, a whole day's worth of travel to get from Paramaribo to Apora. And when I get to Apora, my friend whose guest house where I stay is a middleman, which means that he collects wild animals from anybody, children, hunters, fishermen who see $30 hanging from that tree. You're going to grab it and bag it up and take it to the middleman, because all of these animals are money. These emerald tree boas are the highest price of $30. You can get money for rainbow boas or colored Amazon tree boas, the red, orange, and yellow. So you'll always see me in my pictures with red, orange, and yellow Amazon tree boas, rainbow boas. And when I buy the snakes from the exporter, I just take everything he has, even the boa constrictors, because I just feel like I can't go in there and just pick the animals that I deem special and go loose them back in the jungle and leave everybody else, Right. So I just buy everything he has, and it's like $15 for a boa, it's $50 for these guys, because when I buy from the middleman, I'm buying them for the price that he would sell them, to the exporter.
Right.
But I also collect all those animals, and they go in the boat with us when we leave to go out into the even deeper interior. And then when I'm in the jungle, anytime we come across a camp, you always can stop at the camp and grab up a couple boas, any kind of boa, all the ones I just named. The hunters have them too, or you'll see some fishermen, so you'll just stop and ask them. And they take my US dollars, and I buy them from them even less than I buy them from the middleman. And then I take all of those animals, plus the controversial way that I also collect the animals is when we're traveling from Apora down to the Cow Falls area on the river where we go. That's a high trafficked area where there are many hunters and fishermen. So any animal that's visible in that place is going to get bagged. So when I see animals along that high trafficked path, I also take those animals with me. So I'm actually relocating animals that are not yet in the exportation process, but highly likely will be by the end of the night if they're going to stay where they are. So I take all of those animals, and then I have, now that I've done this so many times, I have my secret places, different places where we know there are plenty of trees that grow the fruit that the rats like, and swampy areas with plenty of frogs and lizards. And we loose these animals back into the wild. And we also have another aspect that we look for, is that it's not just a riverside, but a riverside filled with rocks that we can't just take the boat back up in there. Because the hunters and the fishermen are going to take these guys out of convenience. They're not usually solely out there for that. So any detour will help these animals. And then I have a long, beautiful prayer chat with the animals about being more cautious and trying to remember me when I come back. And I loose them back out there.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's crazy how cheap they go. Truly, like $30 or it just sounds so. But to them,
it's a full-day wage in a developing country. So.
Right. So the next question, what is $30 to them? Like how? Yeah, I'd be curious to see what the change of currency, like what that is.
About a full day's wage.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Yeah.
For a maybe just above minimum wage worker.
Okay. How that would mean for us. Okay. So yeah, pretty decent amount. Yeah, if they see it and feeds their family, then yeah.
They're out there hunting and fishing to make money to trade those goods. So it's just another commodity that comes out of the jungle to them. Right. And that's another thing about traveling over there, is realizing that this is the culture here. These people have been living off of the jungle and the resources of the jungle for as long as they've lived there, generation after generation, their ancestors. Yeah. So taking these animals from the jungle to them feels, I'm going to go ahead and say like picking a bunch of bananas and selling it at the market. I've never used that analogy, but just as far as picking something, a resource from the jungle, taking it back for sale and trade. Right. So when I'm there, I take all of those animals that I've collected from the middleman in Apora, and I actually tame the emeralds. And sometimes rainbow boas, usually an adult rainbow boa can be tamed as easily as an adult wild emerald. I don't have any luck with the boas. I cannot tame a boa. If there's a nice one, there's a nice one, but I have never had success with that. And I have also had some success with Amazon tree boas, but not 100% like the emeralds and the rainbows. But I take those wild animals, I tame them with a special way I do them. And then I can literally put those animals on children and people and see that the animal's body language is very relaxed. And I do it. It's controversial, but it's what I do. And that's my way of showing the families and the children, which everybody says, oh, thank you, love, that they they never held a snake. Like some of those guys have been trapping for decades and they never even actually held a snake. They just put the bag over the place and take it or do whatever they do. So I'm showing them that these are not bananas. To just go back to my last analogy, these are just little green slithery people who love us too. And I've had such a beautiful response. Children who just want a pet snake and all kinds of great stuff. So people always ask me, what's your favorite part of all those travels? When I get to use those wild ambassadors to help the locals realize that these beauties are people too.
Yeah. Just getting them to appreciate, and hopefully it gets their mind into thinking of it as a sustainable. Is there regulations on how like many animals they can take? Is that very highly regulated or no? No. Okay.
And that reminds me, I named hunters, fishermen, anybody out there. Also, I inquired years ago and I found out that even when we pass the mines out there, because there are communities of people logging for like Chinese companies, logging mines, gravel mines, different types of, I want to say chemicals, minerals, things like that. And in those small working communities, those guys can be out there sometimes for months at a time. And there are no regulations from the companies that these guys can't sack up animals and keep them. Well, when you sack up an animal out there on the job site and you're not going back for weeks or even months sometimes, which everybody knows a snake can survive months without eating, they can stay in those sacks until they finally get back to the villages. Apora has a middleman, but all the villages have middlemen. And then they go to the middleman and sit in a wooden box, and then the exporter finally comes whenever they come to pick them up from them and take them back to their facility. And so to speak on another point that I always like to get out there, which I think I've touched on, is that not all exporters are created equal. You can get into a taxi cab in Paramaribo, and the taxi drivers will commonly know which exporters take only the juicy, healthy animals and which exporters will take whatever bags you pass off to them. And so knowing where your wild caught animals came from could really change the game, because if people are only willing to buy from these exporters like Bart and Igor, who keep things pristine and only, their professional teams only collect good, healthy animals. If we were only getting exports from those types of exporters, we would not have this problem that we have with the huge percentage of northerns, wild-caught northerns dying once they get here. So when those things happen, folks, it's not all imports, all wild-caught. It's wild-caught from careless exporters and careless importers who are not paying attention to, where they came from. So it's not an equal thing. How do I feel about exporting? I know probably nobody asked that, but I get asked that all the time. When I first started going out there, like my first 3 or 4 trips, maybe the first 3 trips, I know the 4th trip is when it changed. I would just look around and I would think, oh God, like tears in my eyes. I wish my beautiful babies could be living out here in the wild. If I could bring them out here and release them, I would release them just so they could be free. Now I look around out there and I get tears in my eyes that I can't bring them home and spoil them to death, because it's a hard life out there. We've come across whole groups. One time we found 5 emeralds in one area over a 2-night period, and they were all ill. All of them were skinny and sick. And the fellas that I was with at that time, when I was still working with the real teams of trappers, wouldn't even touch the snakes, because their exporter who they were working for would never take an animal who looked like that. Well, I've seen that. I've seen 2-inch huge thorns all stuck in their head from like wrapping prey and getting stuck in something. And dead, almost dead, barely alive with monkey wound bites. Claw marks, old claw marks are real common to find on wild caught. And now I can look at one and know if it's wild caught instantly, just because I'm familiar with the markings of a wild caught, with all of the different injuries they have, not to mention the exportation process. So now I feel like the wild caught northerns who get to come here, if only we could increase knowledge, people could start, acclimating them more by providing a more natural environment for them, sterile but natural. I feel like there are a lot of things we could do to increase their chance of surviving. And I don't mind bringing them, because you asked if I've seen things change. It's only been 4 years for me, but I've seen a lot of damage. I haven't seen a lot of change, but I've seen a lot of damage in the jungle. And I almost now start feeling like bringing these animals back here under the proper conditions is Noah's Ark. So my view on exportation has completely turned around.
Interesting. That's very interesting. Yeah, you're almost like, we're saving them because you're seeing their habitat being, I'm assuming, destroyed by deforestation. All of that is what you've been seeing. Okay, so
all different kinds. Decades old. In some places you can't even find caiman in the rivers because the forest was stripped 4 decades ago and never recovered. So that's what we're dealing with, and we all know what's happening to the rainforest. It's not getting more lush.
That, the reefs and all of that too, kind of similar. So I heard another podcast too with their imports. What they'll do is they'll just put like a towel over the enclosure and like not even look at them, just let them decompress for a little bit, just of how stressed they are. I don't know what your thoughts on that. Once you get an import in, how you go about that process of having them seen by that, or do like fecal testing or all of that, or what
I can definitely speak to that. I've experienced those things and made my decisions of what to do. And there was a time I never thought I would be able to speak on this topic with experience, but I've had 2 full, wonderful rehabilitations from animals that were in poor condition. I'm working on another one right now and plan to continue that work because I really enjoy watching them come back. Putting a towel over them. I do keep my wild caught northerns. I cleared out my biggest walk-in closet upstairs. They get a quiet space with the door closed. I do keep stimulation on the outside of the enclosure, like plants and things, but not on the inside. I like to make sure that they get plenty of rain, not moisture, but actual rain. And I like to make sure that they have a vine system with very small vines up to the 1/2-inch vines, because I see how they move in the wild. And I want these animals to feel comfortable. Let's just say we put an animal that just came from the wild and went through that terrible process that I just discussed. That can be terrible. And put them into a box with, say, a PVC pipe. I know a lot of people like to burn them and twist them, and that's so much better than just the plain PVC, because having no traction and not having a tiny little thing to wrap the tail around ever, and that's what makes them feel tight and secure. So they have no way to feel secure. They're on a slippery thing that doesn't make them feel secure. A whole lot of aspects. No rain. So yes, they will drink out of the water bowl, but if it's raining, they will drink for hours without stopping. Like you can literally see them drinking the whole time. You can go back in a time lapse on the camera and see that they literally physically drank for over 2 hours in the rain. So I like, yes, the towel over for privacy, but I also feel like walking on the floor. Our upstairs is real solid, but sometimes my husband, I'm like, he knows right away, don't walk so hard, because I don't want it to shake the floor for the northerns up there, because they're still, acclimating. So all kinds of little things like that. I definitely wish that our northerns could all have vines and rain. I really wish that, and privacy. Yes.
Awesome. Cool. You just tell in your voice, the passion about it, and that translates. It's like, oh, I'm really like save all of them, so excited about that species. So yeah, it's been a very refreshing episode. We had a lot of people here in the chats in the last few minutes.
Thank you, everybody. If I didn't get to say hi to any of my friends, Morelia, Gabriel, and Tara. Those are the 3 people. Nice.
And then Lucid is a big member of the Trap, and he's from Sweden, and he's tapping in, and yeah, so a lot of love on the.
I have some friends from Sweden.
Oh, some friends from Sweden. I'd like to visit there someday. I think it'd be.
I got to live in Germany for 5 years in my early 30s.
Okay.
I guess I went when I was 29 and came back when I was 34. It was a spectacular experience because over there, the whole continent is like the United States.
Yeah, you can go to all the different like countries or something by train and
yes.
Experience different cultures in a relatively short.
I homeschooled my daughter, so we traveled everywhere.
Okay. There's so many. You just gain a better appreciation for what you have here, but also learning and can implement that. I've been to Japan during school. I went for a few weeks. Haiti. In Jamaica. Yeah, Haiti was very interesting. I went with school and we went to an agricultural college there and gave some lectures and worked with them on sustainability with farming and things like that they could, harvest things and create their own sort of income.
Amazing. So that you went there as a developing country to.
Yes. Yep. And the northern part.
At all or just education?
What was the first part?
Was it an educational group?
Yes, it was in college. I was in undergrad at Purdue, majoring in animal sciences. So this was like an animal science targeted group. And so we kind of split into groups and worked on projects. Mine, I got put on with some engineers, and it was interesting. I worked with some agricultural engineer students, and we went through developing a system where they could filter their own water through different types of systems, whether it was plants or different size rocks. Again, I was an animal person, so this was all new, but then we took what we learned over there and then they could implement it and try to use natural ways on how to filter their water because they're
very nice.
That was
well, you kind of have the smart nerdy engineer vibe about you, so I bet you got on with those folks fine.
I'll take that as a compliment.
It's a compliment.
Well, I'm pretty nerdy. Yeah, I'm in my whatever. I'm about to finish up my PhD right now, so I've been in school for a long time. So I'm definitely nerdy. So I'll take that. Yeah, I got along outside my wheelhouse, but it was a great experience. So I highly recommend if anybody can go abroad to do and interact with the people over there.
I say especially a developing country. I have learned so much, of course, everywhere, but really truly experiencing the culture of a developing country just gives such a broadened perspective of this real life, who we are.
And without going too much, we always, we think rich, we think of money, right? But when you talk to these people in developing countries, they may not be rich with money, but their outlook of the world is like rich. I know that may sound interesting. It's a little hard to explain, but the way they think about things, that they're such like good, endearing people, the way they grow up really has like an impact on you.
And the level of happiness that they have.
Yes, the happiness. Yeah, notice that.
That's rich. So I think how happy you are is definitely a factor in richness.
Yep, and how they grew up. So yeah, well, it's been a fantastic episode. I feel like we can go on for forever talking and learning. Definitely have to have you back if you want to come on and talk some more. But it's been interesting. I don't see any last. Oh,
Morelia, let me just show you real quick. You see the vines that we have there that were done by Michelle Maddox, and this Gaboon Viper was also done by Michelle Maddox. And some of you guys saw I did like a big unboxing a couple weeks ago, and it was 2 sculptures that Michelle Maddox did of my real king snakes upstairs. And everybody thought they were real. She does such spectacular work. We just love using Michelle's using her for art. We love her art.
Well, I'm gonna have to look her up after this.
Yeah, it's Maddox, Maddix.
Maddox. Okay, I'll have to look. I'm gonna type that out so I don't forget and look that up afterwards. It's been okay. Awesome. Well, it's been a fantastic episode. I learned a lot. I can not every guest, but with this one, you can definitely feel their passion, their love for the animals, and so that just is very inspiring to me in keeping my own reptiles. So, fantastic episodes. Or anything you wanted to say to the fans? How can people follow you if they want to? You know, get in touch, ask questions, or whatever.
Yeah, you guys can find us on Happy Basins or Amy Benzie. Either way, you can Google that, and either one will come up on all of the social medias. You can find us. And my phone number is Googleable. I get phone calls and text messages, and I always return them when I have time. If anybody has questions about things, everything I talk about is on my own experience and the things that I've learned through research since we've had these animals. And I'm always, some of you guys know, you start talking to me about emeralds and my day is over, because I will do it as long as I can. And please remember that these animals love vine systems. They love to have lots of space to slither. The thing I always like to leave with folks is, if you have an enclosure with PVC pipes or dowels or any type of perch, that's fabulous. But if you just took the soaker hose, you can bend it in all kinds of ways, and just think about all that space being filled up with surface area for the snakes to slither on. And it's so easy to just add the soaker hose vines to your existing setup. And if anybody wants information on those soaker hose vines, shoot me a message and I'll send you a link to, I have multiple videos out there. I just made another video yesterday with Ron Rundo, who's a snakescapes artist. He made this. And Rundo came over and we made some vines together. So cool. I'm glad to shoot you the link to that video, or you can just look it up. It was live yesterday. So
okay, wow.
Vines.
All about the vines. Perfect. Yeah, I think in the description below, I have a hashtag and how to find you guys. So yeah, awesome. Yep, everybody checking in. Great show. Yeah, thanks Marcus. At work, wrapping up. Cool. Yeah, it's been
guys for all being here. I love you, all my friends. Yeah. Gabriel and Tara and Morelia, thank you.
Yeah, it's been fantastic. All right, well, put you backstage, free to have the rest of your evening. And again, thank you so much for your time, and I really enjoyed this episode. So
okay, I'm gonna sign right off. Okay, so I'll see you next time we do something together.
Yeah.
Thanks for the collaboration. Yeah. Bye, everybody.
Bye, Amy. All right. Fantastic episode, guys. Thank you so much for tapping in. If you're new here, go ahead and hit that subscribe notification bell. Get tapped into all the episodes. We are 7 days a week here. I'll kind of bring up our little schedule that we got here. Girls Love Reptiles. Of course, on Sundays, I've been playing around with the times, trying to see, what works best for people. But if you have any questions, just go ahead, reach out. Next week, I believe we have Carly from Coastal Morelia. I'm pretty sure. I'll have to double check the schedule I got. But yeah, some more arboreal species. So go ahead and tap in for that. And hope you guys have a great start to your week.